we're looking at the Ukrainian military announcing this week that its forces used U.S.-provided ATACAMS missiles in strikes on Russian territory. Russia's defense ministry then confirmed on Wednesday that Ukrainian forces did fire at least 4 U.S.-made ATACMS on the southern Russian city of Voronezh. Now, we of course know that, yes, these missiles were provided under the Biden administration back in 2023, but they require targeting data provided by the U.S. in real time. So when you look at U.S. involvement, and yes, the reality that, okay, the U.S. could back off and tell Kiev, hey, no more support. How do you see what the U.S. is currently doing, even amid these reports that talks are ongoing?
Well, I mean, that's part of the, I don't want to say it too strong, but something like schizophrenia of our policies, because we say one thing, but then often we do another. And one has to wonder, is the right hand talking to the left? Is the White House even aware of that's going on? I don't know. I mean, it could be, stuck somewhere in the operational level, never even get up to the strategic decision makers up in Washington. It's unclear, or even whoever is authorizing this. You got to wonder, what's your objective here? I mean, what's the point of having 4 ATACMS missiles going to do this? So look, we had overnight, let's see, I think it was somewhere around 550 some odd total shots from Russia going into Ukraine of these advanced long-range drones and missiles. I think it was 80 something, if I heard the correct number, of different calibers of missiles that were flying all throughout Ukraine. 80 something. Caused a lot of damage, hit a lot of stuff, and it just added to the deterioration of the Ukraine energy system. It's causing more and more problems, but it did knock the Ukraine side out of the war. That's 80, okay? 4 here, and that's rare. 80 is common, or missiles, various times throughout, every week, there's usually some number of missiles going in there, sometimes huge numbers, sometimes small, but it doesn't knock Ukraine out of the war. How much less a handful, 4 long-range missiles going into Russia is going to have any effect on the tactical front, on the course of the battle, on the front line? Then why do you want to go down that path? Just because you can? Because you're like, that maybe the war is coming to an end. So, this is our last chance to just, poke a finger in Russia's eye one more time. Maybe we'll do that. But, every time you do something like this, especially because it requires American participation, you continue to escalate the risk of escalation. That Russia may, on their side, say, okay, well, this war's coming to an end, but you know what? I'm sick and tired of this, and before we lose a chance, I'm going to stick it to you, and I'm going to take some action here which, maybe goes a little bit beyond the pale of what we've done before. You have the risk then of escalation, whether through miscalculation, error, dumb judgment, anger, foolishness, you name it. As long as we keep doing stuff like this, there's the risk that this thing escalates, and there's no benefit whatsoever to our side. I really hope and pray that these reports that are out this morning, which seem to be gaining in interest and momentum, are true, so we can get this war over with quick and the possibility of escalation off the table.
Yeah, and when you look at, the position that the U.S. is in, I'm with you. There is nothing that benefits the American people from staying in this proxy war against Russia. And even though you have the back and forth on that, it's like we've got plans for talks one day or plans for an agreement another day, the one constant has been the Russian advances on the battlefield. We're seeing their advances not just around taking Pokrovsk and Kupiansk, but now moving on Severesk and Lyman and the Donetsk region. How do you see the current situation on the battlefield and Russia's increasing advantages in this ongoing war of attrition?
Yeah, aside from the Pokrovsk and Kupiansk, which Pokrovsk is essentially gone now. There's just literally a few streets on the outside that Ukraine still has control of. Mirnograd, the sister city of that, is now well under siege, and then in Kupiansk they're closing in on, actually physically closing off that cauldron. They already have it under fire control, etc. But then you also have down in the Zaporizhzhia area, you have continued advancements of Russia's going up that waterway coast, closer to the city of Zaporizhzhia, not too far from the outskirts of that city. You have Severesk this morning. There was, over the last 12 hours, there's been some significant advancements into the city, about 25% of it on the outside sides as well as that. The shots into Kramatorsk and Slavyansk continue to go up. There is an additional let's see, Ulia, etc. There's so all along the front line. That's the whole point. Oh, and up in the Kharkiv area, there's been more advances up in that area that Russia continues to move down, literally from the north all the way down to the south, and nearly every point in between. Ukraine simply doesn't have the troops. It's now been out in the open that I think it was even it was either Julian Rupka or maybe the Secretary of State Rubio, one of those two. I can't remember which one I read right off now, admitted that Ukraine has maybe 17,000 per month on average of mobilized. That's forced mobilization, which obviously is the lowest quality because you're literally stealing people off the street. They have desertions up so far in the first 10 months of this year, 161,000 desertions. We don't know for sure the battlefield losses, but they're probably commensurate with that, if not even more. So you see that the number that you can bring in and the number that are going out through casualties, killed, and desertions are you're shrinking each month. You can't offset losses. Meanwhile, the Russians, on the other hand, have so many troops that they can rotate entire units, entire regiments off the line and bring another one in and give them months to reset, rest, retrain, etc., and then roll them back in. They have no shortage of that, and they're prioritizing firepower anyway because they also have advantages in the drones now, the anti-drone capabilities. Obviously, the glide bombs have been expanding in range and in lethality. The drones themselves have been advancing. The Garin 3s now with jet-powered, etc. There's no category that you want to look at where the system, the things are balanced and parity. Russia is on the advantage on all of them and moving higher. There is no basis upon which to even hope that a defeat can be avoided. Forget about winning. That's literally off the table, not even contemplated. But now then there's not even a chance to avoid a loss. And every day these numbers shrink on this side and grow on this side in all the categories. The pace is going to accelerate. And we've already seen that right now. The German reporter Julian Rupka, said that right now the losses for the month of November for the Ukraine side are on par to get to close to around 1,000 square kilometers, which would be an all-time record since the early 2023. Basically, since the initial invasion was settled, from that time forward, this could be the most in a single month, meaning we're picking up speed. After 586 square kilometers were captured by the Russians in October, this is going somewhere, and it's bad for the Ukraine side.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you summed it up perfectly, right? That this is not about winning a war. Right now, it's just looking at, okay, when is the inevitable loss? And also a reminder, too, because for, literal years now, the media here in the West has focused on this claim that, Russia's only taking so much territory, not realizing that any territory the Russians do take, that means destroying Kiev's defensive lines and their ability to hold territory. We're now seeing them not be able to hold anything anywhere.
Yeah, and it's an important point I think is important to highlight is that the Russian objectives have not been territory. It's increasing now in the speed of it, not because they're doing things different that they want to capture more territory, but because their primary objective is the destruction of the Ukrainian armed forces, to kill as many of the soldiers and permanent wounded as they can get. That's the objective, so that's the effect of the demilitarization they're talking about. They don't have to worry about a treaty. They'll take care of it themselves. And if you get to a certain minimal point to where the fabric just literally tears, you'll be able to literally just drive into the countryside somewhere because there won't be enough troops to defend. And then the whole thing could be over. You don't have to worry about this incremental taking of territory. All you have to do is destroy the fabric, and then there is no defense left. And that seems to be Russia's main objective, which they prioritize the protection of their own troops and prioritizing firepower on top of, with all these advantages they have, so that they don't have to lose as many troops. And they've got all the time in the world, but you see that there could come a point to the break, and then there could be a dam burst, and all of a sudden the Russians could flood in. I think that maybe some people on the West are starting to realize that they're getting close to that flood point, and they want to try to forestall that. I hope they do.
I hope they see the writing on the wall, right? Instead of just continuing to kick the can down the road as things continue to get worse and worse for Kiev. Now, while I have you here, I do quickly want to ask you about the situation in Venezuela, because I've been watching this for weeks, waiting to see what's going to happen. Are we going to see direct U.S. strikes on on Venezuela. You've got the USS Gerald R. Ford that arrived in the Caribbean this week. You have the New York Times reporting today that Trump has signed off on CIA plans for covert measures inside Venezuela, operations that could be meant to prepare a battlefield for further action. They also said that Trump has reopened back-channel communications with the government of President Nicolas Maduro. So how do you see the current tensions? Is it possible for the U.S. to make a deal with Maduro and back off, or is this just kind of the build-up to a future war?
Everything depends on talks about what. He was asked at President Trump this past weekend, I think it was, or just a few days ago, are you willing to talk to Maduro? And he said, I'm willing to talk to anybody. And they said, well, what are you going to talk about? And he goes, I don't know, you tell me. So he wasn't going to tell me. And I'm like, I was thinking, what do you mean you tell me? That's the really the important issue. What do you want to talk to him about? Maduro has already offered basically everything, their mineral wealth, their oil and gas, et cetera. I mean, basically put it on a golden plate. Usually that works with Trump, but for some reason this time he has not been willing to accept it. What some reports are saying is that the discussion is about Maduro leaving. Like him giving all this stuff is not enough. For some reason, there's just this obsession in the Trump administration. I don't know if it's with President Trump himself, whether it's Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Hexeth. I don't know who it is. Somebody else maybe. There just seems to be this obsession with Maduro has to go and we have to succeed in getting this coup done one way or the other. And so the talks seem to be about Maduro either leaving on his own or leaving because of military power. That's why I'm really interested in hearing what the administration says, because nothing makes any sense short of that. There is absolutely nothing on this in this part of the hemisphere regarding Venezuela, and that definitely includes the alleged thing about drugs. Forget about that. That's all a smokescreen. There's a whole bunch of other folks in the region that are a much more issue propensity to have illegal drugs come into the United States. They're like 15 or 16 on the list, way down there. But he's claiming that that's what it's all about. But if it's not that, then what else is left except for you want to have a regime change op? And if Maduro doesn't go, then what is we going to do? What's President Trump going to do after that? Because he's got all this firepower sitting there, and there is big time temptation to use it. And I'm just telling you, if we do, this could be an absolute unmitigated disaster. Because all that would do is probably just start some kind of low-level insurgency type war against our troops, whatever, because we have, on the one hand, we got a lot of firepower in the region, but we don't have a lot of boots. So you're not going to go in there and just, have a bunch of F-18s go in and just bomb the hell out of the country. You're going to blow up a bunch of stuff, but if you don't put boots on the ground, you're not going to take anything. You're not going to make anybody leave unless you get a little decapitation strike. But short of that, then, and if you don't succeed in that, then what are you going to do? You're going to send the Marines in there? You're going to send another 100,000 troops into the area? Or are you going to start a war and then just walk away from it? I don't know, but all the outcomes are bad. And I don't see any positive outcome for the United States. And I hope this one also, that the sanity reigns and we don't get into a conflict.
I would hope so. I know they've spent all this money, they've sent all this metal out there to the Caribbean, but when you look at the Venezuelan military, the fact that they have not turned on Maduro, to me that says even if you carry out a successful decapitation strike, what's to stop his top general from not taking over and, being the next Maduro? You don't solve anything. So I'm with you. I hope that sanity prevails. We'll continue to keep an eye on this one. And I always appreciate you taking the time to join me to break down all of the latest here. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, combat veteran, national security analyst, and host of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive, which y'all can find on YouTube. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Always my pleasure. Thanks, Rachel.
If anything in this video resonated with you, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, leave a comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to keep up with all of my work, make sure that you're subscribed to my page on Substack. That's rachelblevins.substack.com. That's where you'll find ad-free videos and new weekly episodes of my exclusive series for paid subscribers called Sanctioned. You can also check out Sanctioned over on my page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Rachel Blevins. As always, thank y'all so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.